Welcome into another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy, and today I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing one of my great friends and mentors representing Robinson Iron, Mr. Luke Robinson. Luke, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Scott.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Typically, when you and I are in front of the camera, we're discussing Auburn, Alabama, or high school athletics, and we're having a conversation together. And this is my first opportunity to interview you, so I'm really excited about this opportunity.
I'm excited to be interviewed.
I got you. So we'll start things off talking about your relationship with Robinson Iron and that relationship with the city itself. So, for those unfamiliar with Robinson Iron, could you give a little background to the business and its beginnings?
Sure. My grandfather started a foundry in 1946, and Robinson Iron is a spinoff of that company because in that time between 46 and around 72, 73, he began acquiring patterns. He began acquiring historic patterns from foundries like J.L. Mott and J.W. Fisk and Wood and Perrott, these pretty famous foundries all across the Northeast. And as he began to acquire these, he began making things for friends, and it had a little side business with his foundry. I mean, it wasn't, the foundry was more geared towards higher volume stuff usually, but he would do some things for friends, some urns and some fountains. And my father, Ricky Robinson, and his brother Joe Robinson Jr., they looked into making a business out of that. And so they got with Scotty Howell, who is still the general manager today. He's been the general manager since the very beginning. And together they all created this business called Robinson Iron, where we work with cast metals. I know iron is in our name, but we work with any cast metal. We work with bronze, aluminum, iron, whatever. And we create new pieces, we restore pieces, we can create something entirely new. And we've done fountains. I've sent one to Romania, sent them to Mexico. We just did a big one in Canada. We have done work in Singapore. We have sent stuff all over the world and done a lot of fountains, specifically in the U.S., because at a time prior to the internet and TV and the having a giant fountain in your city, or just a fountain as a symbol of your city, was sort of the gathering place. That's where everybody would get together and talk, and it was sort of, again, the symbol of the city. You know, look at Illick City. A lot of our signage has one of our fountains on it. So that's pretty standard. And we've done a lot of pieces all throughout New York, obviously all the way to California. We've done some work in the Iolani Hotel in Hawaii. So just about wherever you can think, we've done something.
I got you. So, what is your role with Robinson Iron? What does the role entail?
I'm with sales and marketing, and so I usually have a lot of customer interaction. But all of us, I mean, my brother Austin is there. Scotty Howell obviously is still there as our general manager. My father Ricky is still there. All of us interact in the shop. We've all probably painted a little bit, and antiqued a little bit, and done a little bit of everything. And so typically, though, I'm mostly marketing, handle social media, etc., and work with customers in terms of getting orders finalized.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned all of the places that you guys have done work for. So when you bring a prospective customer here, what's the thought process, or what is their typical reaction when they realize that all of this is happening in small town Alabama, in a place as small as Alexander City?
Yeah, that's one of the more fun things we get to do, is when people come to our facility and see what's actually happening here. They generally can't believe it. And again, this is not my patting Robinson Iron on the back. It's just, that's just the truth. It's we've had some folks that when we work on Vulcan, for instance, or when we work on this Canadian fountain at Berksey Park, or when we work on a job in New York or State Street in Chicago, we've had a lot of folks come into Alabama, and you can tell they're having to Google, well, okay, where exactly is Alexander City? And I have to fly here and then drive there and do this, and do I have to get on a horse somewhere? And by the time they get here, they realize, oh my gosh, this is really cool. This community's cool. And it's a very unique community, and we have been very fortunate to have a lot of talented people from which to employ, and it's been a great synergy between us and the community, I think, and it's always fun. People, I think this holds true for Ellick City in general, is when people come here and they get a taste of the lake and they get a taste of Willow Point and some of the property down around the lake, and then you come in downtown and you see exactly what's happening there, and I think the people are so friendly and so much fun. I mean, that's the one thing. Look, Ellick, I've always said, there was a famous movie, what, 6 Degrees of Separation? I think with Ellick City it's like 2 degrees of separation. I went to the University of Alabama, and it seemed like every other person I met knew somebody or had an Ellick City story, and they're usually pretty funny. And so when people come here and to see their project unfolding, and they get to see Alexander City, it's, they leave with a smile on their face and some stories for sure.
How many projects are usually happening at one specific time?
It depends. I would say, if you looked at our job sheet right now, we could have 50 to 60 plus or minus jobs going now. Those run the gamut. One of them may be making an urn for one client in Wisconsin, and one of them may be working on historic cemetery railing for the city of Raleigh, North Carolina, which we're doing. So, that one may be a $50 job and one may be a $300,000 job. So there's a lot of things out there, but that's another thing that makes us unique. It's never, we're not putting out Model Ts. We're not assembly line stuff. Everything we do, even the standard stuff we make, has a uniqueness about it, because somebody will want a fountain and they'll say, but I don't want this bowl, I want to change this bowl, or I want this basin to go with this other fountain, not the one shown in your catalog. Like, everything has a different combination to it. And so it makes everything pretty unique and keeps everybody on their toes.
And I've been familiar with the business and the family for quite some time, had other friends and family that have been a part of the business as well. And I know that I have a couple that are part of my favorite projects that you guys have done, especially in Washington. But do you have a particular project that was your favorite?
Well, it's hard to say Vulcan wasn't our favorite project as a company as a whole, because of its importance to Birmingham and the state of Alabama. And I have a pretty solid connection to Birmingham myself. I went to high school there, and my wife is there. I kind of split my time between Birmingham and Ellick City. But Vulcan is certainly up there. I think this last one at Berksey Park has been pretty big. Now, for me personally, one that I had the most interaction with, I would say there was a fountain at a development called West Haven in Franklin, Tennessee. And it was probably the first really big fountain that I worked on. And kind of helped them design it, helped them the whole way, and it's still their centerpiece. And it's been about 20 some odd years. It's held up incredibly well. As again, cast iron and all these cast metals are very durable. They just need usually bare minimal maintenance, and you're going to be fine for generations. And this one has been their symbol for that development. And to hear them talk, I saw some of the developers later at another show, and they ended up using another one of our fountains for a big development. And they talked about how the property around the fountain was so much more valuable because of that piece. And it just gives you a lot of pride to know about that. And one of the better things for me is working with people like that, but also with smaller communities. Yeah, we love to work with New York City. We love to work with Chicago. That's fantastic. But it's a lot of fun when I get to work with Metuchen, New Jersey, a city that had a piece that's 125 years old, and maybe a couple of sections are missing. And I happened to find them online, and I contacted them and reached out to them, and they said, yeah, we're really interested in restoring this. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't know what to do. And so we walked them through the process. We end up getting it here. We even helped them, tell them about fundraising and how to get out there and maybe make some things happen. And that project ended up winning an award in New Jersey, and I went up there for it. It's a lot of fun to see that, a small community that takes pride in some of these very historic pieces that they've had, and it's fun to help bring that back to life.
Is it more is it more segmented toward the restoration side or completely new project?
It's hard to say. One year it'll be one thing, and the next year it may be another. I would say a couple of years ago, it was certainly more new creation. We did these gates for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania City Hall. These gates were designed in the 1800s, mid 1800s, and they were never built. And they're about 27 feet tall. There are four of them on the north, south, east, and west corridors of City Hall. And they were on the original plans. They were just never built. And so they contacted us in around the year 2000 and said, we found these plans. We want to do these. We've never had them. We want to do them. We gave them a quote. They said, we got to do some fundraising. And it took them a while. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It took them a while to raise these funds because these are massive, tremendous gates. And it took a lot of work. But in 2015 or into 2014, I think they said, we're ready to go. And so we built them and we put them up, and that was a new creation. The Berksey Park fountain, which you can find on our website at robinsoniron.com, that was a new creation that we worked with a very famous architect in Canada and his firm for that project, and several other Canadian firms. And that was a whole new thing, an idea that they came up with, a fountain for a dog park. And we made 27 different varieties of unique dogs that are life size to go around this fountain, and one cat. Because somebody said, hey, we might bring cats to the dog park. So we want to include everybody. And so we took that up there. Again, a very unique piece, and that was a new creation. But right now, we are restoring, again, the Raleigh cemetery fencing. That's something that is one of the bigger jobs we have right now. We're working on the Capitol Dome in Nashville. Again, that's a restoration job. So next year, it may be all new stuff again. It may be a continuation of restoration. It's hard to say. I would tell people all the time, we have a standard catalog, and one year I may sell 25 of one variety of urn. I may not sell another one for 5 years. We don't change our marketing. We don't change any strategies. It's just it's an ebb and a flow for all of our stuff.
I got you. And again, we're here with Luke Robinson today, representing Robinson Iron, and there's another segment of the business that we were talking about before, which is Satterfield. And a lot of people still may not know the correlation between Robinson Iron and Satterfield. So could you enlighten the community on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, we consider both Satterfields. There's Satterfield Machine, which is near us on Oak Street, and then there's Satterfield Highway 280, which is Satterfield Outdoor Living now. We consider both of them sister companies, and obviously the Robinson name is a part of all those. But the machine shop, they are always busy, and they do a lot of stuff that we need at Robinson Iron. I mean, we work very well with them. And then Satterfield 280, that's a place to go to get any of your outdoor needs for grilling, for lawn maintenance. I think one of the best things they sell right now, two of the best things they sell, are the Big Green Eggs, and they have really taken off, and that's a great place to go. You can't miss it. It's right near Tallapoosa Ford, and they have an actual inflatable Big Green Egg there. Mm-hmm. So you need to go check them out. But they also sell the Skag mowers, and they are just absolutely fantastic, top of the line. And I think they are a little bit more expensive than some people think about for mowers. But once you have one, you wonder how you ever went without. I mean, if you've got an average to larger size yard specifically, I mean, it's a must-have. I've got a pretty big yard. I use the Skag as often as I can, and it just cuts your mowing time to an infinitesimal level. I mean, it's just so much fun. You enjoy riding it, yeah. And then you get plenty of time to cook on your Big Green Egg.
Yeah, I'm just trying to visualize you doing some yard work. But something else too, as I alluded to in the beginning, when you and I are typically in front of a camera, it's talking about sports. And so, rabid sports fan, columnist for B Metro, Lake Martin Living, the Alex City Outlook, part of the ASSA Radio Network, as well as Sports Blitz, a hot commodity in the sports arena, not only locally but statewide as well. Can you just give us some background as to how you came affiliated with that and just your love for sports in general?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, I went to high school in Birmingham. I went to Indian Spring School, and let's just say I wasn't top of my class necessarily. I think I don't even mind saying this. I graduated 42nd out of 49, but those other 41, they were pretty strong, as I like to say. But the unique thing about going to Indian Springs for me was it was like going to college before going to college, because I lived on campus for 4 years. This was pre-cell phones, pre-internet. We didn't have TVs in the room. We didn't have any telephones in the room. We had a couple of payphones around the dorm circle. So it forced me to look at things a little bit differently and interact with people a little bit differently. And it also enabled me to be more creative, enabled everybody to be more creative. That was the beautiful thing about that high school. But one thing I did there when I was a senior, again, just kind of like college, I was able to take a lot of writing classes, or anything in literature. I'm not the biggest reader in the world, which is a little bit ironic. You like to write, but you don't like to read that much. But I did take a lot of classes more aimed towards that, and I just liked it. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have an outlet for it for the longest time. And then I started working with a friend of mine named Lawrence McCrary, who started a website called Crimson Country Club, and said, hey, I'd like for you just to write a blog occasionally, whenever you want to. And so I started doing that, and it got me back in the flow again. And then I started working with Brett and Randy over at R&B and Sports Blitz. And they had a really great idea about an untapped market here in Alexander City. People love sports. Why don't we try and talk about sports? Why don't we start up some programming? Why don't we start up the AHSA radio network? And so they contacted me about helping them with some Alabama stuff. My being a big Alabama fan, both of them Auburn fans, they wanted to even it out a little bit. And at first I was pretty hesitant to do it. I mean, I felt like I was going to be camera shy. I felt like, what if people don't like what I'm saying? And I think what you figure out pretty quickly is everybody's not going to like what you're saying, but you just got to deal with that. And as long as you sort of speak your mind, I think everybody can respect that. So we started that, and then I started working with the AHSA with them, doing some play-by-play and color stuff. I'd never done that before in my life. I had absolutely zero training for it. But what happened is I've watched so much sports over my lifetime that I picked up on nuances I didn't know. I mean, it was sort of subconscious. I'm not even in the area code of Randy's color analysis or Brett's play-by-play ability, but I've listened to it enough where I can get by. And I'm not trying to be Vern Lundquist. That may be a bad example, but I love Vern Lundquist. So I'd rather be a Vern Lundquist, a guy that just again speaks right from his heart. But so we started doing that, and now we've had a couple of other programs. Well, meanwhile, around 2008, 9-ish, somewhere in there, maybe 2007, as I was getting hooked up with Sports Blitz, my brother actually was with Sports Blitz too, and he wrote a quick column for this paper, the Outlook. I think Randy had asked him to, and it was something very quick. And then I think the next week, Randy may have asked me to write something. It's sort of under the Sports Blitz name for the Outlook. Well, that just started something. I started doing it every week, and actually for a while I was doing it a couple of times a week, and I just liked it. I enjoyed it. Again, I don't pretend to be a Pulitzer winner. I try and write like I talk, and sometimes that can be a problem. Sometimes it's probably hard for people to follow because I can be a little scatterbrained. But every now and again, that's what I do is I sort of write scattered thoughts because I don't have enough to write a full column. But so that led into writing for the paper, which led into writing for Lake Martin Living, which led into my wife had some connections at B Metro Magazine in Birmingham, and she said, "Look, I'd like for you to take a look at my husband's stuff and see if you'd like it." They liked it, and I've been writing for them, I want to say, since 2013, but I'm not 100% on that. So yeah, it's time consuming. You're not certainly going to get rich doing it, but it's just something I enjoy, and it's a way for me to still be very involved. I love all the stuff with the HSA. I love talking about sports. and I say sports, I should be more specific. I like talking about football. And I like basketball too. Basketball is what I played growing up, but I've become a lot more of a helmet head. I mean, I enjoy the AHSA football season as much as anything. I enjoy SEC football as much as anything. And now there's so many avenues to find out about it. I mean, it's just been great. I mean, Paul Feinbaum certainly was a big pioneer in that regard, but the paper here does such a good job. You're writing a column now. You're doing a great job. Lizzie Arbogast she is phenomenal. And I think we have a good combination. Andy Graham writes for the paper, and he does a good job. I think at Sports Blitz, we've got a great core group of people now that want to be there, that are passionate about it, that understand nobody's in this for the money. I mean, it's fine. I mean, but it's not. That's not why we're doing this. This isn't a 401k job. This is you better love what you're doing and then be able to express yourself with it. And but it's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'll take this time to say this. When I first started, I was a little gun shy, especially being on the air, and I had a lot to say, but I couldn't figure out the right way to say it, and I was a little more comfortable when it would be Randy or Brett up there because it was Auburn related, and even if it was Austin, I could get by. But if you're on the air with Luke, you got to be prepared, and so your wittiness and your quickness forces your counterpart to be able to maintain that same level of intensity. And so I can definitely say that my early days doing Saturday Sports Countdown with you and Sports Flips was really how I developed this love for being in front of the camera. And to this day, if I have something that I want to write, I'm going to make sure that I send it to you to make sure that you say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So I do appreciate the guidance you placed there. You've been really a great pioneer. And as you said, when you're in the media business, a lot of times it's not something that's going to be something for monetary gain. It's doing it because you have a passion for it, and you can definitely see that that's transparent through the different outlets that you have to do so and platforms. So it's been a really fun ride, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else happens down the road.
Well, I mean, I really thank you for saying that, but again, you've done a great job, and you are unique in that you know about this community. You've been tied in here with a popular fellow. I mean, you don't get elected to the city council without being that way, and so it's funny. I mean, like I try to come at it, even though I was born and raised in Ellick City, and but I have spent I'm a little bit more nomadic. I mean, I went 4 years of high school in Birmingham, then I went to 4 years at Alabama. I travel a lot. I've got as many ties to Birmingham as I do here, and so I try to come at it from a different perspective. Because the other thing that I've always thought about Ellick City, man, Ellick City folks protect their own as much as anything. I mean, Ellick City is it's a very family oriented thing. And so sometimes in my columns, and I've gotten in trouble for this, just in the street, I've been told I may have overstepped my bounds a time or two, but that, you shouldn't go there. And, not that I'm on the cutting edge, just saying, that's my point, is that even if you go a little bit beyond sometimes, I mean, people around here, and it's a great thing. It's a family atmosphere as much as anything. I'm not making fun of it. I mean, Ellick City, everybody looks out for one another here. And I mean, it's a fantastic trait to have. But you're being in here and your love for the community has really been expressed through the columns is what I'm trying to get to. And, I think that's a really cool thing that people appreciate.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that that'll be something that continues. But before we let you go, I can't let you off the hook without getting a prediction for this weekend's game, Florida State and Alabama. Obviously, everybody, as you just said, you're a big Alabama fan, but that may not necessarily indicate what your prediction is. But I have a good idea. But I'll let you go.
I mean, look, it's going to be hard for me not to predict Alabama to win. Okay, I think that point spread may be a little bit high. I know that Alabama has done well in these not preseason, but kickoff games the past 10 years. But I'm going to say Alabama wins this something like 24-17. I mean, right about where it is, maybe 24-21. I think it's going to be a very tight game. I think that the key is going to be, as it always is with football, except when you have the once in a generation Herschel Walkers, Cam Newtons, Johnny Manziel's, is going to be in the trenches. And I think that Florida State's I like Alabama's defensive line against Florida State's offensive line than I like the vice versa. I think Alabama's offensive line is pretty salty, and I love Florida State's defensive line. They've got NFL guys all across the board, but the offensive line for Florida State last year was a problem. Even with a mobile quarterback, they gave up 40 some odd sacks. And even though Alabama lost some guys, I mean, you're bringing Deshaun Hand and Deron Payne and those types of guys. It's going to be tough to block them.
Absolutely. Well, Luke, we appreciate you joining us today, and I hope that we continue to have these great conversations, and we look forward to catching up with you down the road. But this has been another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy. See you next time.